If you're watching this video and you're actively spending money on ads for your e-commerce brand, you're likely wasting a ton of that spend. What if I told you that there's a way to turn every dollar you spend on Meta or Google ads into literally 5 times more revenue without increasing your ad budget at all? This isn't some secret guru hack, it's literally just good lifecycle marketing at play. Over the next few minutes, I'm gonna show you exactly how email and SMS marketing make your paid ad dollars go way further and make your business way profitable by driving your ROAS higher and driving your new customer acquisition costs lower. All right, so simply put, in order to drive higher ROAS and lower customer acquisition costs with email and SMS, there's 4 things that we need to talk about. You need to have pop-up forms set up. You need to have optimized automated flows to convert traffic that comes in from those pop-up forms. You need to have campaigns optimized and sending frequently to convert those subscribers as well. And then you need to have good deliverability so that your emails actually land in the inbox. Now, let's look at an example from one of our clients, Young Nails, but I promise you this applies to every single brand out there. So at this very moment, someone is scrolling on Instagram and they're about to see an incredible ad for our client, Young Nails. Now, if you go to your Meta ads library, you'll see your ads that look just like this, but for this instance, they're looking at Young Nails. This person is gonna click on an ad because the creative in the ad got them interested in the product, and then they're gonna land on the website's homepage and start browsing the website. Now, if we assume that Young Nails has an industry average conversion rate on first-time site visits of around 1%, then that effectively means that 99% of the traffic that's coming from those ads is gonna end their session without purchasing. Now, there are 2 proactive ways, 2 levers that we have at our disposal to get that 99% of traffic that bounced off the site back to the website to purchase. The first way is Meta retargeting ads, which is what most brands rely on. So Meta and Google retargeting ads. Meta retargeting ads cost around $10 per click in 2025, and you have very little control over how and when you get in front of leads. Now, if we compare that to email and SMS marketing, it costs literally 1 penny to send an email or to send an SMS. You have full control over the timing at which that email and SMS is getting sent because you can use behavioral triggers, like when someone abandons their cart or abandons a checkout, looks at a product. You can send very targeted messages at the right time. And then finally, the quality of impressions that's coming from email and SMS is much stronger than ads because they're very targeted and focused and have a direct call to action that links out to the site right away versus ads, you're kind of just catching someone as they're scrolling. They're not really in shopping mood. So email and SMS impressions just convert better. All right, so how are we going to get people onto our email list so that we can retarget them with email and SMS? The way that we're gonna do it is with good pop-up forms. So just really quickly, I'm gonna show you what most bad pop-up forms look like so you know what to avoid. So number 1, most bad pop-up forms out there have no offer in the header, and the offer is ultimately what matters the most. So in this example, we can see this brand is saying get 10% off, but that 10% off isn't in the header. It's not jumping out right away. Next, most bad forms are asking for multiple inputs in one step. So here, when you're asking for a name, birthday, and email in one step of the form, that's a lot of friction compared to just asking someone for their email, and this causes people to bounce off the form. Next up, it's visually overwhelming. There's just too many elements in place. And then finally, there's a generic CTA that doesn't speak to the offer. So a CTA that says sign up is just not going to convert as well as a CTA that says something like unlock offer or get 10% off. So this is what most bad pop-up forms look like. Now, a few more examples of what to avoid, what most bad pop-up forms look like. So number 1, you could have no offer at all, which is a huge miss. You can have email and SMS on one step in your form, which actually isn't really compliant with SMS laws. So like not only is this bad for conversion, it can also be illegal. So you absolutely want to have email and SMS collection on different forms. You want to ask for their email input first and then ask for their SMS input on the next step. And then you can have a flyout form. So simply put, we've A/B tested this 100 times across our clients, and flyout forms just don't convert as well as pop-up forms. All right, now here's a few examples of what good pop-up forms look like that can convert up to 15 to 20% of your site traffic. So the first example is a micro yes form. Some people call it a micro commitment form. And essentially we're offering free value to someone in order to get them to make a micro commitment, give a micro yes, and then we ask what we want for return in the next step. So in this example, we have the micro yes, which is saying you've got 15% off. And before we ask for their email address, all we're asking them to do is just say, yes, I want that. So they're saying claim 15% off here. Then next up, you have the offer in the header. We're asking for 1 input on each step. Visually, this is very clean, really easy to understand the offer, what they need to do super easily. And then there's a CTA that speaks to claiming the offer, like claim 15% off. The next example, which is what we built for our client, Young Nails, is a micro yes plus zero-party data collection. So in 2025, zero-party data is super useful. It allows you to understand who's coming to your site and what they care about, what they're interested in, so that you can target your welcome series messaging a lot more clearly. So the zero-party data we're collecting for Young Nails is basically we're saying you've got 10% off your first order. To reveal, let us know what describes you best. And then website visitors are answering either I'm a nail tech or I'm a nail enthusiast. So now we know how we can market to them better. And then on the next step, we're asking for their email. And you can see there's only one input on each step. We got the offer in the header, very visually clean, and a CTA again that's speaking to claiming the offer with unlock offer. Now, in terms of performance benchmarks, so if you log into your Klaviyo account, you'll see that Klaviyo says like above 3% is good. The truth is, in 2025, if you know what you're doing and you know what levers actually move the needle in terms of pop-up conversion rates, you should absolutely not be seeing conversion rates under 7%. So essentially, we see poor conversion rates as 0 to 5%, average conversion rates as 5 to 7%, good conversion rates of 7 to 9%, and then really good, great conversion rates of over 9%. So really over 9% is what you should be aiming for. And this is where you can start to connect the dots of if you are driving over 9% of people that visit your site for the first time onto your email and SMS list, you now have a really cheap retargeting funnel to get those people to convert. In terms of the top performing form structure, so like I said, step 1 should be a micro yes, like you can see here. Step 2 should be email collection. Step 3 should be SMS collection. And then step 4 should be a success page. So once you have a form that's converting over 9% of your site traffic, next up, you need to build out your automated flows to consistently convert these new subscribers as they come into the funnel. So the first flow that you absolutely need to set up is your welcome series, which is going to introduce your brand. It's going to give people the welcome offer that's in your pop-up form, and it's going to clearly communicate why someone should be buying from your brand. Your welcome series should absolutely be your highest converting flow. So if you're converting 9% of your site traffic, let's say, then you should really expect over 10% of those new subscribers to be converted within your welcome series. Next up, you have your abandoned checkout flow. So your abandoned checkout flow is going to recover lost sales with timely reminders after someone leaves the site after starting a checkout. You're going to have your abandoned cart flow. A lot of brands are missing this still in 2025. You need an abandoned checkout flow and an abandoned cart flow for people who don't reach the checkout stage. Then you need a browse abandonment flow. So a browse abandonment flow is going to be triggered when someone visits a product page on your website, but they don't add anything to cart or start a checkout. So we're just going to automatically retarget them with a flow. And then a post-purchase flow, which can be used to promote cross-sell or upsell offers that you have to immediately boost the revenue that you're getting from that first purchase. I'm sure go into a little bit more detail here about your welcome series and your abandoned cart flows because they're so important for driving higher ROAS on your ads. So first off, in your welcome series, the most important elements of a high converting welcome series, you need to clearly communicate the welcome offer and how customers can redeem it. You need to have at least 7 emails in your welcome series. I see a ton of brands in 2025 that still only have 1 or 2 emails in their welcome series. The highest converting time you're going to have to convert new subscribers and people who just discovered your brand is immediately within the first week after they discover your brand, which is why you need to be hitting them every single day for the first 7 days after they subscribe. In those 7 emails, each one should only focus on one core message or conversion angle that you have to sell them on your brand. Ultimately, this is just because the more information, messages, and CTAs that you have in one email, the less impactful each one becomes. So I see a ton of brands that have like one welcome email and then they have their about us story and their best sellers and their FAQs and their customer service contact. And it's just way too much information that all gets lost. So instead of having all that in one email, you should break that up and have them all in separate emails. And then, like I said, first 7 days are super important. So you should just have 1 day time delays in between each email. Now, this is super important and a really good call out. Brands put a lot of time and energy into creating great websites that have all of the information a website visitor could ever need to convince them to buy. But where they fail is operating under the assumption that their website visitors actually take the time to locate and read all of this information. So you might go to your website right now and say like, we have our About Us page set up with all of our information about our incredible story. We have all of our bestseller collection pages set up. We have a loyalty program that's amazing. We support these amazing causes. Like, all of that can be true, but what can also be true is that the people that are coming to your site from your ads are never seeing those pages. They're coming to the site, they're subscribing to email, they're looking around for a few minutes, and then they're bouncing. So it is your job to put all of those reasons why they would want to buy in front of them directly. So really quickly here, you can see a bad example of a welcome email that we have right here. And essentially, like, what's wrong with it is, number one, it's literally impossible to find the code to redeem the welcome offer. So in your first welcome email, to drive higher ROAS on your ad spend, like, you need to have your welcome offer super easy to find and super easy to use. Ultimately, like, that's what most people are going to care about. That's why we want our offer in the header in our pop-up form. So right here, you can see it's buried all the way at the bottom. I don't even know if it's hello or if it's like hello dash all of these numbers and letters. So you need to make your code super simple and clean and easy to find. Next up, CTA is buried. So you want to give them their code and get them back to the site to use that code. And like, the CTA shop our site really doesn't stand out. It's buried at the bottom of the email. The creative itself is just poor. And this is from a brand, Mountain Movers, that has really good creative on Instagram, on their website, but that creative just doesn't translate to email. And I just want to take 1 second to explain, like, most people think email creative, copywriting, and design is what's most important in email marketing. That's simply not true. Like, what you're communicating is way more important than how you're communicating it. So essentially, like, we want to present the offer and make it super clear and easy to use here. If this was a beautiful email, but the code was still all the way at the bottom, like, this would still be poor converting creative. Now, what does matter for high performance email creative? So creative should be aligned with the branding and quality of creative in the rest of the funnel. So like I said, like, if you have amazing creative on Instagram, if your ad creative is great, if your website creative is great, and then your emails just don't look the part, then you immediately lose trust from that person who just found your brand. Next up, you should have a scannable layout. So someone should be able to open the email and, like, right away just see what each section is about. You need to clearly present important information like offers and codes, and then you need to have clear CTA buttons. And ideally, the first one is always going to be above the fold in the email. So basically, above the fold just means, like, when someone opens the email, they're going to have to scroll down to see the rest of it. And you should have your first CTA button above where they would have to scroll, so they see it on their screen as soon as they open the email. Now, over here, you can see examples of high converting welcome emails from a few of our clients. So the first one's from Feel Goods over here. You can just see, like I said, like, we're presenting the offer and how to redeem it super clearly right away at the top of the email. Save up to 30% off with your first order with code MyGoods. You have a clear CTA here, save big today, to get them back to the site. The rest of the email is scannable. You can see everything that we're talking about. Next up is Kin Euphorics, a client that we worked with in the past. The brand was co-founded by Bella Hadid, so we have a picture of here right here to just instill trust. But again, you can see we have our welcome message at the top, and then we have our offer and code CTA super clearly presented. The rest of the email, very scannable and clean. And then another one for one of our clients, Rooted, again, has all of the key elements that we want in a high converting welcome email. All right, next up, your abandoned cart and your abandoned checkout flow. The most important elements you need are the following. So you need to have at least 3 emails, and ideally your flow is going to be branched between prospects and existing customers, because fundamentally your prospects have different objections that you want to handle compared to existing customers who have already bought before and trust the brand. The way you do this, it's pretty simple, but it's by setting up a conditional split in Klaviyo that just says, has someone placed an order before? One side of the branch that's yes is existing customers. The other side, no, is going to be your prospects. Next up, you need to have an optimized time delay before your first email. So this is typically between 30 minutes and 4 hours. We A/B test this for all of our clients. You want to remind your prospects who have never bought before about your welcome offer, and then you want to include other relevant incentives for returning customers. You absolutely want to include SMS here. So SMS is extremely high ROI for your abandoned cart and your abandoned checkout flows, because it has nearly a 100% open rate when someone was really close to converting. And then lastly, but also most importantly, you need to handle objections. So people have a reason for why they didn't purchase. Usually it comes down to they don't believe that the product is worth it. And you need to proactively have messaging in your flow that handles those objections. So here's an example of what makes a bad abandoned cart email. So essentially, we can see one here from Casper. It says, come back to bed. Looks like you left something behind. Return to your cart to complete your Casper purchase. And then it has a really small picture of a pillow standard over here with a button that says return to cart. This is probably close to what your abandoned cart email looks like if you're using the default Klaviyo one, or if you just haven't put much thought into optimizing it. And essentially, this just assumes that the only reason that this person didn't buy this Casper pillow is because they got distracted. Like, it's not factoring in any other reasons why they might have felt it wasn't a good buy for them. So the reason it assumes that is because there's no objection handling. So objection handling would be having reviews in your email. So reviews are social proof. They convey trust. Other form of objection handling could be an us versus them block, which would basically compare this Casper pillow to other pillows on the market and show you exactly what you're getting from Casper that you're not getting from other brands. Because a common objection is usually just, I'll buy it somewhere else. There's no applicable offers. So if this is my first time on Casper's site and I am eligible to use my welcome offer, they're not reminding me of that here. And then it's just poorly designed. So like I said, design isn't the most important thing when it comes to email. If you have a product that is high quality and like it helps to touch it and see it in person, you really want to make sure you're presenting that product in your abandonment flows like in the best light as possible. So if someone can't touch it, you just need to be sure that the visuals are as good as they can be. And if we look at this Casper email, like I can barely see this pillow at this point. It's not visually appealing to me. Examples of really high converting abandoned cart emails. So this is one of our previous clients, Nekohama over here, Match on Your Mind. We're presenting the high quality visuals over here. And then we're saying like you can get more for less by getting a kit. You have customer reviews here, which are handling the objection of trust. Then for our client Young Nails, we're saying bring home the goods. You can use 10% off with the code FIRST10 because it's your first time purchasing. Then we have our dynamic block, which shows the cart contents. And then we're also letting them know there's fast delivery and free shipping, excellent customer service, we're affordable, we're built for innovation, and then we're a family-run business. So we're just providing all of these reasons as to why you would want to buy. And then finally, another client here, Aura. So essentially, if someone is abandoning a session and they didn't book a service, then we're letting you know exactly why you should book your service. We're not just saying, looks like you forgot to complete your booking, go back. All right, so once you have your core flows in place, the next way you are going to convert your new subscribers is with your campaigns. So I have other videos where I go into way more depth about campaigns and how to optimize them. But ultimately at a high level, this is what you need to know. You need to be sending a consistent cadence of at least 2 to 3 emails per week. This is super important because if you just don't send emails for a few weeks and then start sending them again, people are going to forget why they subscribed in the first place and they're going to unsubscribe. Your SMS cadence can vary heavily from brand to brand, but it should also be consistent. So SMS campaigns convert really well when there's promotions and new product launches, and you should be consistent and send once a month, once a week, whatever makes sense for your brand. It should be consistent. You need to have optimized segmentation. Most brands either send to segments that are either too small, which results in significant lost revenue because they're not sending to enough people who are qualified to purchase, or they're sending to segments that are too big, and that's leading to poor deliverability. If your brand is sending to your full email list, this is a major red flag, and you need to go watch my video on deliverability right now. Lastly here, you need to be sending emails that actually add value to subscribers' inboxes, and you need to help them build their connection with the brand. So instead of only communicating with them with emails that say shop, 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 you need to be getting into their inbox with things that they care about. So for food and beverage brands, this could be recipes. With functional products, this can be like information and education to help them understand something that is going to improve their life. There's a ton of ways you can do this, and there's really no excuse in 2025 for brands to not be sending value-add emails. So lastly, we have deliverability here. Again, I have a video that goes way deeper on deliverability if you want to go watch that. But at a high level, you need to keep an eye on your deliverability score in Klaviyo. So a score below 70 should be cause for concern. You can just go to the deliverability tab and see it pretty easily. These are the key metrics that you need to monitor. So spam complaints, you want to keep under 0.1%. Bounce rate, you want to keep under 0.3%. Unsubscribe rate, under 1% account wide between flows and campaigns. Open rates should be over 50% on campaigns, and your click rate should be over 0.8% on campaigns. Now, as soon as you realize that you might have a deliverability problem, you absolutely need to begin sending to tighter engaged segments, and you need to put together a plan to slowly broaden those segments up again. So of course, there's more details to kind of unravel here, but at a simple level, if you think you have a deliverability issue, you need to send to small segments. That can be like a 14-day engaged segment that you would send to for 2 weeks. And then the following 2 weeks, you would broaden it up a little and send to a 30-day engaged segment, et cetera, until you can get up to 90 days. Now, the good news is that keeping your deliverability healthy is really just a function of doing everything right. So like in terms of sending your campaigns to the right segments, in terms of setting up your flows properly, these all lead to good deliverability. Deliverability is unfortunately not something that like you can just fix with a few clicks of a button. Now, I want to show you an example from one of our clients of exactly how email and SMS lead to lower customer acquisition costs and higher return on ad spend. So this is a recent 30-day period from one of our clients. And here's what I want to show you. So number one, what we can see is in a 30-day period, they drove 1,900 new prospect subscribers. So through their pop-up form, they drove 1,900 subscribers that have never purchased before, compared to 722 in the previous month. So this is a perfect example of what happens when you increase your pop-up form conversion rate. If you increase your pop-up form conversion rate by 164%, which can represent, let's say, going from 4% to 9%, 31%, this is the increase of new subscribers that are going to come onto your list. Of the 1900, 593 converted in total in general. This is like not factoring in email and SMS. This is the total. So that represents 31% of all new subscribers that converted. And that represents $130,000 in revenue from these new prospects. Now, if we look at what is happening when it comes to Klaviyo, here's what we can see. So of the 593 new subscribers that converted, 248 of those were attributed to Klaviyo, either campaigns or flows. So 13% of that 31% came from Klaviyo attributed revenue. And we can see $50,000 of that 130,000 came from flows, and around 3,000 came from campaigns. So literally what we can see here, point blank, is that email and SMS help generate an additional $53,000 in revenue just over the course of the first 30 days of a new subscriber coming to the site. So this really clearly paints the picture of bringing people in from your pop-up form and then the additional incremental revenue that comes from your email and SMS marketing. And here's where we can connect the dots and say, if you spent $30,000 on ads here, your ROAS would have been significantly higher because of this incremental revenue that email and SMS drove on the back end from these new subscribers that came from the site traffic you were driving to the site. Now, an interesting data point here is on day 0, you can see this is where most new subscribers are converting. So the green here is attributed conversions, and then the lighter green is the unattributed conversions. And you can actually see on day 0, so the day that someone signs up, the majority of conversions are actually unattributed to email and SMS because a lot of people just stay on the site after they fill out the pop-up form and go on to convert there. But what's super interesting is after day 0, almost all conversions that are coming are from email and SMS. So when we look at our ability to retarget someone effectively after their first website session, we can see like the incremental clear difference between how many people just came back to the site at their own will or via an ad and converted versus people who converted via email and SMS directly. And after day 0, it's basically all email and SMS. So when we look at the retention side and we look at the impact of email and SMS marketing on LTV, this is very interesting as well. So this example of this brand, if we look at their 90-day repeat purchase rate, what we're seeing is customers who had their first order attributed to email or SMS had a repeat purchase rate of over 20% compared to customers who had their first purchase not attributed to email and SMS, who had their repeat purchase rate of just over 10%. So it's literally almost a 100% higher repeat purchase rate from anyone who had that first purchase from email and SMS. And the reason why is because if they had their first conversion attributed to email and SMS, that means that they were engaged in email and SMS. And then as time went on, they were more likely to be converted from email and SMS compared to someone who was able to convert without engaging in email and SMS and didn't really build that behavior. And of course, if you have a higher LTV, you can justify a higher CAC. So literally on both sides, the math is working in our favor tremendously. Like on the one hand, we are lowering our customer acquisition costs through good pop-up forms, flows, campaigns, and deliverability. And then on the other hand, we're actually seeing higher LTV because of the ongoing engagement and nurturing and staying top of mind that comes from email and SMS. So if you go ahead and implement everything that I just talked about here, you are going to see a lower customer acquisition cost, a higher ROAS, and a higher LTV. If you don't want to do all of this by yourself, at our agency Dispatch, we live and breathe lifecycle marketing. We work with dozens of 7- and 8-figure brands, helping them scale through exactly these systems. So if you're interested in chatting to see if we might be the right fit to help you scale this year, the link to book a discovery call is in the description of this video.